Hey, it's Mazzy. Welcome back to the channel. First impressions on the latest two Rhino high fidelity releases. These all analog cut from master tapes, cut by Kevin Gray for Rhino Records. Now, just to give you a little background, Rhino Records is the catalog division of Warner Music. So they have access, in theory, to all the tapes put out by the Warner Electric Atlantic Group. That's their former name. There are exceptions of some label over the years changing. There's certain bands and artists in the UK that were on labels there that were licensed to Warner Brothers and Atlantic and Elektra over the years in the States. So not everything that we would like will be available. So the two here are the debut 1970 album by Black Sabbath and the 1980, the third album by Devo with the hit Whip It. And I'll get into Devo in a second. And let me give you just a background how I listen to these. Now, I will say this up front. I am not an expert on Black Sabbath. I did see them for the first time in 1972 at Winterland. They were the headliner, but I didn't go to see the headliner on that show. It was Wild Turkey, Yes, and Black Sabbath. And this would have been between their third and fourth record in between those two. But I went to see Yes, and I saw Black Sabbath. I had heard these records, but I didn't own copies of Black Sabbath until around this time, maybe a little after, in 1973, working in record stores, when I started buying their first few albums on Warner Brothers in the States. Now, also with this comparison, I am comparing several copies, and just give you my impressions of them. I do not have the original UK Vertigo record, so that is not on my comparison here. Now, I've heard from people, a lot of people love that record, and most people I know think that's the best sounding version of the first Black Sabbath record. And most of their first few records, the Vertigo record where the master tapes are. Now, a little background on this. This was cut from the original US master tape, the Warner Brothers tape that's been in the vault since the very beginning. It's the tape that was used to cut the original Greenie, and those Greenie records on all, pretty much all bands, whether it's the Grateful Dead or James Taylor. I can't believe I'm comparing James Taylor with Black Sabbath, but the Van Morrison stuff, those are some of the best sounding pressings of Warner Brothers. There's not bad ones with Palm Trees when they switched, I guess 72, when they switched to the Burbank Palm Tree label. But I want to talk about this, and the two versions that I compared it to are an original Canadian Greenie. This has the deep groove from 1970. This has the artisan stamp on it. I believe this is from the same cut that the American first deep groove was pressed. And this is a really good sounding record. My copy here is a little noisy, especially on the long track on side 2, Behind the Wall of Sleep, and basically an NIB, that long track with the acoustic guitar. It's very noisy, unfortunately. And then the other copy I have is a 2010, I believe Ron McMaster cut this, supposedly from the analog tapes, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Now, I listened to these last night. I got these just about 24 hours ago. And last night, I spent about literally 6 hours till 1 in the morning listening to the various Black Sabbath records, the various Devo records, and I had this blasting. Fortunately, I'm in a house where I can play music loud late, and that's what it was. But I thought I had to like sleep on it. So this morning I played the records again, and I had a slightly different take on it than I did last night in terms of preference and my impressions of the sound. So I think that's something to take into consideration. We all have different rooms. We all have different gear. We all have different moods when we're listening to music, and sometimes something at night after a long day you react to differently than the morning when you're fresh and you have a fresh openness in a way. And it was a very different experience and surprised me. I went through all 3 copies this morning early, starting like about 7 a.m. and listened to these. But let me just showcase this to you. 180 gram, cut from original analog master tapes by Kevin Gray at Coherent. Now, again, this is from the American tape. It's a non-EQ'd copy. I'll show you in a minute. There's a photograph of the tape box. Apparently, the copy that is in the UK, they couldn't get to because Vertigo is not part of Warner Music in the UK. And I don't know the condition of the tape. They don't know that either. That is also a non-EQ copy. Is it the original? Well, I don't know. This is what we have, so I only can compare it to this. Heavyweight gatefold jacket, exclusive insert with commentary by engineer Tom Allum, who worked on the original several first records, and it says limited number edition of 5,000. And that's been a controversy, not just with Rhino, with a lot of people and a lot of labels about limited edition. And a limited edition is only that edition. We saw the Rolling Stones monobox 5 years down the line after the original black edition. It was recut, I believe, and pressed on color vinyl. An edition is an edition in the moment. Now it's me coming from the art world. So I'm not defending Rhino or Atco or Beatles, anyone else. A label and artwork can choose to do various editions. Maybe they'll do another edition of this later and press more unnumbered. Maybe down the line, there'll be a version of it without this beautiful cover stock and reproduction. I don't know, but that's the fact how editions work. And some people just don't seem to understand that, you know. So buy this music because you like the music, not because you think it's limited for flipping. That's the kind of, as far as I'm concerned, the bullshit way to buy music. But to each their own, okay? So if you want to do that, you can. This has a gatefold like the original UK copy. That wasn't on the American copy, as I recall. So this has the poem in here and the credits in here, the original credits. So it's pretty much faithful to the original UK Vertigo. Inside, there is a separate insert. The insert contains photographs of the tape box here. You can see the non there, which means it's a non-EQ'd copy. This is the master tape. This is what they used to cut the 1970 Warner Brothers. And apparently every copy since, which in theory might be that McMaster copy in 2010. I'm not quite sure. And I believe it was cut again throughout the 2000s. But here's the insert. This is the interview with the original engineer. This didn't bring up anything really new to light from my point of view. Certain things he forgot. Remember, this record was recorded in 2 days. It was mixed in 2 days. And at the time, they didn't even have a label. They weren't signed to a label yet. So it's considered the first heavy metal record. Is it heavy metal? Is it a doom record? Is it psychedelic a little bit? I always would argue, if you have to argue, that Summertime Blues, the Vincimus Eruptum album by Blue Cheer, the power trio out of the Bay Area, was the first really heavy metal, but they're different. This is a very jazzy record. I forgot how jazzy it is, especially the drums and the bass on this record, especially on side 2, that opening cut, Wicked World. Now, remember, the original UK copy had a different opening track on side 2. It had a cover song, and it was replaced by the B-side of that single, to Wicked World, which was this great jazz thing. I think this is, to me, the better track list. I have heard over the years the UK edition on CD and how it sounds in terms of the playlist. I like this version track-wise better, just that one different track. So there we go on this. So let's talk about the music, and let me do a little comparison of my take on it. Again, I'm not an expert on this album, and those of you who are all in a Black Sabbath know more than I do about the band and have heard this record a lot more than I've heard it. I played first the Canadian copy, the original Canadian copy. This is a beautiful sounding record. Again, my copy is noisy. It's a little on the bright side compared to the other two. But we could get into that whole thing about brightness. Remember all the brouhaha when the television Marquee Moon came out, where some of the highs were tamed off and cut off a little bit, and all this discussion and back and forth about artist intent. I don't think that's applicable here, but someone might say that. This is a really good sounding album, but very bright, very brash, very in your face. Now, the biggest difference I heard on all these is that track on side 2. That opening track, Wicked World. When the bass and the guitar were playing, the bass was very loud and very up there, almost exceeding the lead guitar in the right channel. And of course, later there's that guitar piece that happens. It seems like a double tracking, I guess, on both left and right, which is rated. The bass is killer on this. Is it too much? I'm not quite sure. When I listened to the 2010 Ron McMaster copy, I thought this was a very flat edition. No balls at all compared to these two. On its own, it sounds good. It's a good sounding record. But after playing these two all night and this morning, the 2010 Ron McMaster cut is, to me, my least favorite. I think this is, this has no balls on it. This is kind of a compromised cut, in my opinion. I just didn't like it. It had no soul, no drive to it compared to these. Now, maybe when you play this on its own and you turn it up, it's fine. But that's something, I'm gonna kind of take this aside and not talk anymore about it, because this was my least favorite of the three in my own collection. The original has balls. The original, again, is a little bright, not overly bright. Again, it's an intense record. That guitar playing is just, it's just killer on this. Tommy Iommi's guitar playing, that thickness he gets is so intense, and the drums are crisp and pop. Now, when I put this on, again, I'm gonna talk about side 2, that first track first, because it's kind of that jazzy thing with the snap drums, the bass. I thought the bass that comes in on the left channel on this fits on par with the guitar better than the original. Now, the bass is way more intense on this one, and some may prefer that. There's something really attractive about that sound, so I could totally see someone liking the first American Press, in that case, better, at least on that track, better than this. I think this is a better overall sounding record. It's the spaciousness. It seems to me this is more, has better stereo separation. I really felt engulfed by this record. Now, that could just be a delusion or an illusion on my part. I heard it that way more in the morning. My morning listen was very different. I remember going to sleep at night, going to bed at night, thinking, oh man, the bass on this original Canadian is the killer bass, and it's the better bass and intense. When I played it this morning, I found it still up there, but I found this, to me, a better mix. I know he didn't remix these records. Kevin Gray did not remix these records. And as my understanding is, he had both an original Greenie and he had a UK vertical in possession while he was cutting this record, remastering this record. I don't know. I haven't heard Kevin speak about it. I don't know if he will. I haven't spoken with Kevin about it. So I don't know how he went into this deciding on it. And I believe, I'm not sure if he's mastered this in prior editions for Rhino or anyone else over the years, but it's a successful job. I tell you, also, I had to turn this up like, I think 2 notches more to equal this. Not a lot, but just 2 notches on my Hagel H390 amplifier receiver. And this kicked ass. This is really good. I almost want to say the Rhino Hi-Fi is smoother than the original. But if I say that, people are going to take that wrong, thinking, oh, he tamed it off, he took the balls out of it, like some people think he did on the television Marquee Moon. Now, I have an original promo of that Marquee Moon if you watch that video. There'll be a link below to my first impressions of that Marquee Moon when I got it. And I have an original promo of that. I preferred the Rhino Hi-Fi. I know some people were critical of, they thought they took the guitars, he tampered down Tom Verlaine's guitars on that. I didn't think so. I think it's a better listen, the new version on that. This, I could go either way on this. I think this isn't a huge improvement over the original, and I could totally see someone preferring the American or the Canadian Greenie original over this. And especially on side 2, when you get into the long piece that starts with the acoustic guitar, my copy is extremely noisy, and it's really disappointing because on that tune especially, you don't want a noisy copy. Obviously, when it kicks in gear and it blasts, it's it's a killer sounding version of this. But I think overall, I like the stereo separation, and this again could be an imagination in my setup and my morning listen. To me, the openness and the separation I really like. Now, it's not a super wide pan stereo. Obviously, you hear the double track guitar. I believe it's double track guitar on some of it, and the bass. I love how, again, I keep going to that one song because Wicked World, I think, is just a killer track on here. And I just can't imagine, since I've heard this more than UK version. Again, I haven't heard in a long time the original Vertigo, but I've heard CD versions of the track listing. I think this song works much better, that jazzy thing. And I love how the bass and the guitar echo each other. They really follow a path. So it's if you're someone who likes this kind of heavy metal music and you don't like jazz, I think you should check out some fusion stuff in the 1970s, because there's a lot of things in certain fusion records where it's, whether it's Return to Forever or McLaughlin's Mahavishnu or even some Weather Report. That's more electric at times. I think it might be a genre that you could get into from this record, because this is all over. But the drums on this are really recorded well, and considering they just did this in 2 days in a decent studio at the time, nothing fancy, I think this is really, really well done. Now, going to the first track and the opening track with the sound effects and the rain and how that turns in that kind of doom metal opening track of Black Sabbath, I could give it to either one. I don't think the new hi-fi Rhino is far superior than this. And sometimes I think when I listen to these, and I probably listened to them now 4 times each over the last 24 hours, I think there's areas of this original that sort of suck me in more than this one. On the other hand, there's some tracks and some moments in tracks where the hi-fi sucks me in. Now, these are $40. These are only directly sold through Rhino. I think in terms of what the originals cost, and I haven't looked online, but look at what an original is and to find a clean copy, I think this is a no-brainer to go to this. So in closing on the Black Sabbath, the 2010, the latest Rhino, or one from the last 14 years. I don't know how long this one's been pressed. I don't know if they're using the plates from this or the last decade. Maybe someone can tell me in the comments below. I think this is my weakest. Now, if I didn't have either of these, I probably wouldn't notice. But it was such a big difference and such an upgrade from the older Rhino to the new Rhino Hi-Fi and my Canadian first press, artisan press. This is a wonderful press. If you have an original Greenie and you love it, are you gonna like the new Hi-Fi from Rhino? I don't know it. Again, I think it's dependent on your taste and your rig, but I think this, like I did with television, there's a certain enjoyment, and I think this has a better balance than the original. Doesn't mean it's a better overall experience, but it's definitely got a better balance overall. Not any one instrument is pushed. Now, you want the guitar to really kick in, and it does. The drumming's great, but the drums snap on this as well. So that's my take on the debut Black Sabbath record from 1970. There you go. What a difference a decade makes. 1980, coming from 1970s Black Sabbath debut, going to 1980, the third album by Devo. and this is Freedom of Choice. This is kind of the one that really broke out across the country in America and around the world a little bit. They were, a notch up from a cult band. They got some radio play. In 1977, I first saw them, and what I got into them was the whole de-evolution concept. Devo, that's their whole thing from, I believe they're from Akron, Ohio. And this song really kind of captured a certain sensibility, a little bit of a humor. Some people saw it as a little bit of a kitsch during the whole, this is the punk scene now, early the punk scene, like a year after the Ramones. I would go to the Mabuhay Gardens, and that's where I saw them in 1977, their first shows in San Francisco. Bougie Boy, that's the first single that I got of theirs, Jocko Homo, and Mongoloid. This is a great, great single. Then they would do covers like Satisfaction, their own take on it. I've always said, if you're gonna do a cover, make it yours, change it up, don't copy the original. And how can you copy the Stones song, Satisfaction, and make it interesting? They did. And also their version of Secret Agent Man, the Johnny Rivers song. This is a Virgin UK single, but I saw them with their multimedia shows, and it was so good. Now, how did Rhino do on this? I will compare it to my original copy I got from Warner Brothers in 1980. It has also the OB with the details. Optical Media, Gatefold Jacket, Kevin Gray, liner notes with album producer Robert Margolith. But one interesting thing here, and I don't know if it's only on my copy, it just says limited edition. Unlike limited edition to 5,000 copies. Is that an error? Are they planning on doing more? Was it advertised that? I don't know. Some heads explode. I don't really care. To me, get the music out there so many people can buy it as possible. So here you go. Just want to show you that, give or take. Beautiful cover again. Beautiful glossy cover. Beautiful printing. There's the gatefold sleeve. And like all their releases, they show copies of the tape. Lacquer cut at Capitol Tower. Non-Dolby master tape. And this is the interview with the producer. Just a great concept. This is, in a way, it's new wave art rock. And it's a great record. Is it their best record? I still think their first record is their best record, at least my favorite record, because it was so unusual and was such a breakthrough record. It didn't sell anywhere near what this did initially, but this had that great song with the really kind of quirky video. Their videos were so cool. Whip It. Now, I compared it to my original, and I played the original first. And my original is clean, it's perfect, no noise. It sounds fantastic. And it sounded really good. I tell you, when I played this kicked it up 10 notches. This had a fuller sound. Again, not bass heavy, not over amped, not over bottom, but just overall, whether it's the highs, the mid ranges, and the low, this was a much better experience. And now, you can't compare Black Sabbath to Devo, but I would say this, out of these two, is the greater improvement from the original over the Black Sabbath. Now, the Black Sabbath, as I said, is very good. It's different in ways, subtle differences in some ways. This, to me, is something more dramatic. This has a richer sound. It's a more enveloping sound. I love, there's a tightness here that is missed here. This seems a little kind of weak in comparison to this. And, this record, you could call it a dance record at times. It's not, meant as a dance record, I don't think. But it's that kind of new wave thing with the electronic drums, in essence, the synthesizer stuff. And there's a certain snappiness to this record, but it's so much fuller here. The bass is better. Again, the mid-range and the lower registers are tighter in this record. And it's a more enjoyable listen by far, this Devo record. So I think this is the biggest surprise for me out of these two records. Now, totally different music, and I've been reading that a lot of people have ordered and pre-ordered the Black Sabbath, and you got to order the music you like. But I would not slouch on and skip this one if you're even thinking about it. Now, to some people, this is a sound of its time, but Devo's still doing this. I think they're doing their farewell tour that's lasting several years. That's the thing with farewell rock tours. They last years or decades in some cases. But this, to me, is one that I really was surprised how much more I enjoyed it over the original. Again, more so than the Black Sabbath. Again, completely different. Now, in terms of the pressings, both my pressings were perfect. I got them in the mail, no dings, no corner shipping. I did get these copies comped to me. These are promo copies. So I need to tell you that because I get flack if I don't tell you, and I've always told you when I get promo copies, and I will tell you the truth and my personal opinions on these things, which means my copies, all the promo copies are numbered 0 like this. These are numbered copies. So even the Devo one says 5,000, but on the hype sticker, it doesn't say 5,000, at least on my copy. I don't know if that's on the promo. So if you get a copy of this, let me know if it says the same on your Obi strip. But I got my copy sent, perfect. Quiet pressings as hell. I mean, that's the thing I noticed right off. Even my original, which is a really, beautiful copy on here, this had a little bit of noise. My original Black Sabbath, as I said, Canadian, had a lot of noise. The one from 2010, the Rhino from 2010, was fairly quiet, but nowhere near as quiet as the vinyl on here. Flat pressing, no aberrations, no ticks, anything. It was a great pressing. So in terms of the quality of the records and the covers, I can't complain about these at all. Really a beautiful series of records. Now, again, going back just to refresh and repeat myself, the only other promo I got from Rhino was the television marquee moon. I have purchased American Beauty. I purchased the first Cars album. I purchased the Van Morrison one they put out. So I have bought 3 of their records, and I got 3 free. So I'm batting 50% in terms of promos. But I don't like something any more or any less because I get it free over buying it. If I like the record, I like the music, that's what I'm going to convey to you. I'm looking forward to other people's opinions. When you get these records, I'm curious on your take, what you're comparing to. I really wish I had, and I reached out to people locally if anyone had the Vertigo. But I've heard some people say that love that Vertigo more than the American copy. But I've also heard a few people say the Vertigo is too bass heavy for them. So again, it's subject to your taste, your ears, and your gear. So thanks for watching, and thanks to Rhino for putting these out here. Enjoy the music. Enjoy the music first. Buy these because you like the music and you want to get into the music. Thanks for watching. Mazzy loves you.